Como nuestro abogado John Mitchell, pues John, queremos agradecerte por habernos acompañado el día de hoy. Nosotros vamos cerrando. Recuerden que si usted tiene temas puntuales sobre sus compañías, cómo abrir compañías, cómo cerrar compañías, cómo solucionar problemas con el IRS, aquí está nuestro abogado John Mitchell, que él les va a dar toda la información, les va a echar la mano y les va a ayudar a solucionar los problemas que ustedes tienen en sus compañías. Yo soy Gustavo Soto, me voy despidiendo por el día de hoy y por supuesto queremos agradecerles por habernos acompañado una vez más desde aquí, desde Houston, desde la ciudad espacial, en Now Media Televisión, la primera cadena bilingüe de los Estados Unidos. No olviden, por favor, seguirnos en todas nuestras redes sociales, plataformas digitales. Compartan este contenido para que llegue a más personas. Un abrazo y bendiciones.
This has been a Now Media.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got a new guest on the show for you guys, Anne-Marie Vargas. She lives in California, but buys real estate in other parts of the country, which is super interesting. We get questions from people that watch the show all the time about wanting to learn how to invest in real estate, that they don't, they can't invest where they live, maybe in California, Florida, New York, expensive markets, but they want to buy real estate. They want to invest. They like passive income. They just don't know where or how to do it. So Anne-Marie, first of all, welcome to the show. We're excited to interview you and kind of get from the horse's mouth exactly how you did it. So thanks for joining on and jumping on with us today.
Hi, yeah, nice to meet you officially. So, yes, I'm in San Diego, California, and as we know, California is a very expensive market on both coasts. And I was kind of in a limbo of what I wanted to do with my career. So I got out of retail and I decided I wanted to get into real estate investing. And I kind of was just one of those junkies listening to Bigger Pockets, listening to podcasts. And what really took off the trajectory of my career was I met my partner. My partner I actually met through real estate, through Bigger Pockets, and he was awesome. He already had about 8 properties, but he was very tenacious. We got along very well. It's a really, really great partnership overall. So he invited me out to Alabama. So we went out to Montgomery, Alabama, and I had heard about out-of-state investing, and I wasn't really intimidated by it. I think because I knew that California was just very expensive and there was no way with the money that I had, I was going to be able to afford anything in California.
Can't cash flow, right?
Yeah, cash flow.
Impossible.
So, of course. And San Diego now is one of the most expensive markets in the nation.
For sure. Yeah.
So went out to Alabama, and that was the first time I ever went to any other like southern state. So it was amazing to see how the houses were older. You were able to add value. Once you're there and you're walking homes, it really takes away a lot of the fear because you realize that it's a business and people are there to answer your questions, and people are very helpful in the South and the Midwest. I love it. Yeah. So being there, talking to contractors, talking to agents, and then with the numbers, obviously you're able to get cash flow, force appreciation. And that's really something with the income that I had at the time, not really being able to do that in my own backyard.
So you got introduced to a market through basically networking, which is amazing. So that's kind of step number one. And then, you went to the market to look at, properties that were there, to walk everything. I mean, it sounds like you bought some stuff that needed some work. So how did you avoid getting taken advantage of by contractors, 1,500 miles away?
Yes. So it's really great to build trust. So for example, like when we would go out and have dinner with contractors, it was really more of like a partnership, like getting to know them. And I think sometimes too, it is about, the business side of it. But if you really want to build lasting relationships with these people, and in those markets, they're very tight knit. So usually you can, if you have a good contractor, they can introduce you to a lot of other people. So really it's just staying on top of their work. I mean, obviously no contractor, you kind of go through a few until you find one that's good. It's really just building relationships, I feel, and being able to convey that, you're serious because, nobody wants to waste their time either.
So do you like sign a contract with these folks? Do you force accountability through pictures? Like along the way, how do you make sure that, what you were expecting to happen to this property is actually happening?
Yeah, so with contractors, they can send you videos, they could FaceTime you, send you live videos on the updates. I mean, there has been a few times where things fall through the cracks, obviously. So that's why you kind of have to have a few on contractors like in place just in case. But overall, it's just really staying on top because we know that, I mean, at least for me, I know that contractors sometimes can be a really difficult piece. So it's just finding somebody that you can trust and just trying to give it a go.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. So it sounds like it's been successful for you. You've been able to buy homes in Birmingham, and then Kansas City is the second city you invested in.
So with Kansas City, yes, I was able to help as acquisitions over there. And it was really amazing because I learned even more than I did in Alabama. And Alabama was more passive. And then with Kansas City, it was more like I took on the reins to find the agents, find the wholesalers. We went out there and it was such an amazing experience because for the first time, I was able to really analyze the deal like all myself. And from there, be able to pass it on to know whether or not it was a good deal. So that one really gave me a lot of experience that then really I was able to take off and get into other forms of real estate investing.
That's really cool. So how do you calculate these deals before you get in and decide this is the deal that you want to buy? Do you run it through a deal calculator online? How do you find what the numbers are? How do you drill down to the actual numbers?
Yeah, so every calculator and deal is different, obviously, and everybody has their buy box. But I would say overall, the 1% rule isn't really something that you're going to find that much. So if you could find something, and this is single family, obviously not really so much multifamily, but with single family, if you can find something within even 0.7% of the rents, and you're able to force a good amount of appreciation, that was kind of like the threshold. So like anything between 0.7% rents to like 1% would be amazing. Obviously, you can either turn it into a flip or you can turn it into a rental. So with that, we had different metrics of being able to see how much it would be able to appraise for. And in those markets, they have an abundance of inventory. So it's great. You can kind of figure out every deal is so different over there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, coming from somebody that I invest in Memphis, Tennessee, I had investments in Indianapolis. I've been to Kansas City a number of times, Birmingham, and there really is. I mean, Anne Marie is exactly right. She hits the nail on the head. Like you can put a force appreciation in these homes by renovating and like doing something to them. But the big key and the key that everybody has, the question that everybody has is, how do you do all that from afar without getting taken advantage of? So it sounds like, you've just done your homework. You've networked with people. You've gotten introduced to contractors. You keep them accountable. In the final time we have left, I think we got 4 minutes left. I'd like to know how you bank these properties. Are you going to local banks? Are you going to private money lenders? Like, are you doing cash out refinancing? The Burr method, is that essentially what these are?
Yeah, so for some of them, we had something in mind of essentially going into them. Like, for example, with one of my first property, I haven't seen any of my money hasn't come out. It was essentially supposed to be a Burr. So you go into it sometimes as one idea and then it turns into something else. For the most part, they were hard money. So hard money, which then a few of them were sold. And then I have one right now that is currently, it was supposed to be sold a lot sooner, but when the market kind of took a shift, that we weren't able to sell it as quickly. So essentially hard money. I wouldn't always necessarily recommend hard money if you're new. I would definitely say look for a mentor, look for somebody who's able to hold your hand so you don't get caught with your pants down.
Yeah.
But hard money essentially is a great way to get started if you're really eager to do it. And if you have the confidence and the know-how, I would say go for it. But obviously hard money, and then you can refinance, sell it. I've kind of been more on the side of Burr does have potential, but if you're low on cash, I would definitely recommend doing a little bit of flips and some Burr because you want to be able to recycle your money as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, you're right. You've got to build up cash somehow to buy and hold real estate. So what does the future look like for Anne Marie's business? Are you going to do a lot of wholesaling this year as you add units to the portfolio?
So I'm actually more itching to get into multifamily. I feel like for me, what I've noticed with single family is it's great. If you're playing the long-term game, definitely hold on to it, add it to your portfolio. But for an investor, you kind of itch to make more money more quickly.
Yep.
So I've kind of just been looking to get more into multifamily just to kind of have my money work a little bit harder. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do next.
That sounds great. Well, Anne Marie, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a guest on the show. Love to see you back again sometime. And best of luck with everything in 2024. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, everybody.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Have you ever had to hire multiple contractors? It is a daunting task that takes a lot of management time and impacts the core business or the company that time you spend with your loved ones. At Texas Home Property Solutions, you can count on a responsible company that can tackle all your general contractor needs. Electricity, painting, remodeling, plumbing, air conditioning, and roofing. Hire us and forget it. With over 20 years of experience, Texas Home Property Solution will deliver your project on time and within budget, with the high level of quality and integrity, no matter the size or complexity. If you are a company, a government institution, or an individual who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
Welcome back, everybody. We're welcoming back to the show Ellie Perlman, who's been on a number of times before. She leads the firm called Blue Lake Capital. And Ellie, we're happy to have you back on the show with us, again. today. We were joking right before we went on air that we don't know what breaks are because here it is spring break. The world's on spring break, but you and me, we drew the short straw. We had to stay in the office apparently.
Yeah, no breaks for us. In fact, I was actually stuck in traffic. Believe it or not, I live in LA and my commute is not terrible. So it's about 25 minutes each way. And today it took me almost 45 minutes. And now I understand why. Everyone is on spring break. So everyone was driving somewhere with their kids. I guess that's what happened. But yeah, don't know what that word means.
No, not at all. Me either. It's going to be a while before we get a break in the action here, but that's the way every year starts off. Ellie, I wanted to ask you from a multifamily perspective, what sort of diligence are you guys going through, when you are looking at multifamily acquisitions, and has it changed from, a couple of years ago when it was a little bit easier to borrow money at a better interest rate, and how has it changed, fast forward to what we're doing right now, borrowing at, much higher rates?
Yeah, it's a really good question. In terms of the due diligence, we're not doing anything differently per se. So it's the same 30-day due diligence period we have. Every time we're under contract, we actually send the team to the asset to walk every unit, and go over all the documentations regarding the tenants, and review everything from the construction standpoint. So the process is still the same. And usually we hire a third-party company that is helping with that as well. And we oversee that, of course. But really what has changed today is that, it's not the process, but the fact that we're putting a lot more emphasis on the tenant base and looking at their profiles to make sure that there's not going to be any issues with delinquencies or bad debt, collections. That has to be very strong across the board.
Yeah, so you're digging into actual applications and resident screening profiles and all of that now.
Yeah. Well, it's something that we've done before. It's just it's something that we put more emphasis on, and we're not willing to take the risk anymore and say, you know what, maybe the tenant base is not as strong. We can work, with a property management company after we buy the asset to clean it up, and to increase the profile of the tenant base. It's essentially something that we are putting more attention to. But it doesn't mean that the process has changed. It's just the emphasis on certain data points in the due diligence process is a bit different today.
That makes sense. What about market analysis? So diligence is one thing, I guess, once you get a property in LOI or under contract, and then you kind of jump into the diligence items. But what from a market analysis standpoint, what are the things that you encourage your team to do as you're looking across the country for acquisitions?
Yeah, a few years ago, we were focused on a handful of markets where we saw a tremendous growth when it comes to internal migration within the US, and also growth in rent. And right now, we're looking at not the entire US, but at more markets that we may have overlooked, 2 and 3 years ago, because really what is important to us is to buy in strong locations. And I don't want to be limited to a handful of markets. It means that you need to invest more time and resources and energy into learning more markets very well, because you want to make sure that you are buying in the right market, in the right sub-market. For instance, I can tell you that in 2019, Jacksonville was a desirable market for us, and we bought assets there. And since then, we've exited those deals, and Jacksonville is not on our radar anymore. We're not looking at Jacksonville right now, because we haven't seen the growth that we thought we could see. So we exited. Gotcha. We made a nice profit, but on the assets that we sold in that market. But things change all the time. You can't just stay married to certain number of markets or one market and just buy and sell in that market alone. You can, if the market gets better or stays strong, but the reality is that in real estate, markets do change, and things do change, all the time. So we adjust our strategy based on what is happening in the market.
So it's population growth. Is it GDP growth? Is it, the number of elementary school permits that get pulled? Like, what are some of those kind of granular items that you guys would be looking at?
Usually, I would say it's population growth, and because we don't want to invest in a market where people are leaving,
Yep.
that means that the demand for multifamily is going to be lower. Um, so it's population growth, it's job growth as well, and rent growth. These are the main three things we're looking at. And of course, we're also looking at crime. We want to make sure that there's no crime where we're buying assets, but the growth is what's fueling the demand for multifamily. If people are moving to a certain markets, if companies are moving to those markets, and they open, more, they're hiring more people and there are more jobs, and because of those two factors, the demand is increasing, and hence the increase in rental rates. These are the three. That's kind of the three items, the three point of data that we're looking for in order to establish whether those markets are going to be strong. One other thing we did at Blue Lake, we looked at the last 2 to 3 recessions, and we analyzed which markets maintained relative strong, good value through the recession and coming out of those recessions. So,
Yep.
Every recession is different, obviously. But this really helped us understanding, okay, if there's another recession, which seems, we don't know what the Feds are going to do. It looks like, soft landing. I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but I do think that there's not going to be a major recession in real estate, and if there is going to be a lot more pain, it's pretty much going to come from office and retail, not so much from multifamily. And so knowing all of that, we can say that, hey, based on the last several recessions, these are the markets that actually fared well. So they're more likely to, maintain values if we invest with them today, whether we hit a recession or not. And we will, it's just a matter of time. I just don't think it's around the corner.
Not to get, off topic on markets a little bit, but do you see any contagion spill over from, the office issues into multifamily at all?
Yeah, some investors have invested in both, retail, office, multifamily, and so they are experiencing some liquidity issues on the office side, which prevents them from, investing in new assets, new multifamily assets. That's one thing. Another impact that I see is from the lending side. So we see lenders getting a bit more nervous and becoming more strict with their demands. And it's partially, I believe, because, they not only lend to multifamily, but also to retail and office, and more office assets are not performing well. And so that puts pressure on the lender and their liquidity. And, Powell's that mentioned last week that, he believed that there are going to be several banks that are going to fail. And he's not talking about Bank of America or JP Morgan. He's talking about those regional and local banks that are lending a lot of money and have a lot of exposure. They're probably going to feel a lot of pain from the office side. And so we feel since January of this year that they are becoming more nervous and they're becoming more strict with their demands, even for assets that are paying the debt, and there's no issue there because they're experiencing a lot of pain from the retail and the office, side.
Really interesting. On the the market side, switching gears back to that for a minute. This is not a political question at all, but there's clearly been a lot of immigration into the United States. Some people say 7 million people over the last 3+ years, and I'm just curious. I see that as a tailwind in single family rental investments, and I think a lot of people do. Do you see that immigration to the United States as a tailwind in the multifamily world?
It really depends on the market. Some markets are more sensitive to it, and depends on the concentration of markets that have more immigrants. I would say that some of them tend to concentrate around Class C assets and, blue collar workers. During COVID, they got hit pretty hard because a lot of them that were working in the service industry, found themselves out of job. And so that's the impact, at least during COVID. Right now, I don't see a major impact, but, I hire, people that are much smarter than me, at Blue Lake, and they could probably answer this question in a more intelligent way. But we don't see a major impact, at least not in the assets that we're looking at. We're looking at stronger assets, Class B, Class A, and usually there are not a lot of immigrants in those assets.
Workforce housing, not as big of a focus for you guys.
Yeah, correct.
Well, I appreciate the time, Ellie. We've got a couple of minutes left, and it's always really interesting to see, your perspective on, how these things develop over time. Multifamily. One last question. A lot of people say in a bunch of different markets around the country that it's gotten a little bit overbuilt. Do you feel like that in certain markets? Are you avoiding certain markets because of that development?
Yeah, there's certain markets are definitely overbuilt. Part of the due diligence process before we chase a deal is to look at the new construction in a certain area, but then also it's important to understand when their lease up is about to end. And that's a very big distinction, because if you have, say, 1,000 units within half a mile from an asset you're thinking to purchase, and it's under construction and it will be, complete in a year, then you can expect in a year to have some issues with raising rents, because those new 1,000 new units are going to cut rates and compete with you, and they are the new kid on the block. They have the best amenities, and but some markets have essentially completed the lease up period.
Yep.
And the delta between their rents and your rents are such that they're not competing essentially for the same tenant. Sometimes they will. You gotta be careful there, but sometimes they don't. And then in that case, they're actually increasing the value of your asset because it improves the area in general. So a $500, $600, $700 delta in rents between those properties, you're not going after the same renter, and it's actually improving the value of your property because the neighborhood is nicer, it's newer, it attracts better people. So it goes either way. It's a double-edged sword, and you just need to do a lot of due diligence and understand where you're, with eyes wide open, what you're buying.
Well, look, everybody, the Blue Lake Capital story is one worth following. Ellie, are you guys on social media? The viewers can tune in and keep up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you look for Ellie Perlman, which is my name, or Blue Lake Capital, you can find us pretty much, everywhere: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, you can go to our website, bluelake-capital.com.
Awesome. Well, until we see you again, Ellie, hopefully sometime soon. Enjoy the rest of your spring break working.
Yeah, I know. Enjoy the non-break break. Thank you. You too.
Exactly. Thanks so much. See you later. We'll be right back.
All right.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure, and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again. Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Have you ever had to hire multiple contractors? It is a daunting task that takes a lot of management time and impacts the core business or the company that time you're spent with your loved ones. At Texas Home Property Solutions, you can count on a responsible company that can tackle all your general contractor needs. Electricity, painting, remodeling, plumbing, air conditioning, and roofing. Hire us and forget it. With over 20 years of experience, Texas Home Property Solution will deliver your project on time and within budget, with the high level of quality and integrity, no matter the size or complexity. If you are a company, a government institution, or an individual who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We have a returning guest on the show, David Aronson. You guys have met David before. If you're new to the show and you haven't met David, David is the founder and the CEO of a company called REVS, Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions. David, welcome back. How are things going in your world?
Thank you, Andrew. Good to see you again. Things are good, busy. I think the word has gotten out, despite all the negative press we hear on adoption of electric vehicles. The word has gotten out to the apartment owners, at least, that they need to have charging stations to serve their residents who will or want to drive electric vehicles.
Yeah, and it sounds like, we were talking offline just a little bit. I got a couple of questions I want to ask you, kind of about financial incentives and, for apartment owners and things like that. But it sounds like, kicking off the year, first quarter here, you guys have experienced some exponential growth. So all the, the kind of the naysaying and people wondering if electric vehicles were going to be sticky, it seems like that's where the future's still headed.
Yeah, I try to filter through all the short-term negative press and get to the long-term trends. And the reality is this: the goals set forth by our government were incredibly aggressive. Okay, but they had to set up these goals to get people to move.
Right.
I never anticipated meeting those goals, but that doesn't mean if you don't get to, if the goal is 50% EV sales of new cars in 2030, and you get to 35 or 40%, well, there's two ways to look at it. 35 or 40% is a whole lot when you start from zero.
100%.
Or you miss by 25%. I choose the former.
I do too. That's a lot more electric cars on the market. And it seems like there's new entrants all the time. I mean, do you see, just out of curiosity, do you see, some of the, the Asian car manufacturers bringing, like China, for example, are they going to be bringing electric vehicles to the U.S. at a lower price point, than some of the domestic manufacturers maybe?
That's a really great question. I don't see why they wouldn't be here. I mean, we're there.
Yeah.
So unless our government decides they don't want them, which would be very difficult, because like I said, we're in their economy. So how are we going to block them from ours? So
yeah.
I stay away from politics. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No.
and the thing about the EVs that I think most people are missing, okay, is we are moving to a society of convenience.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, it was the industrialization. Then we moved to communication. And now everything it seems like that's going on in our economy is all about convenience. Artificial intelligence is what we hear all day long. Well, that's about convenience.
Yep. It really is at the end of the day. Yeah.
DoorDash, convenience. I mean, you can just go on down the list. The internet, convenience. Amazon, convenience. Electric vehicles, convenience. And people say, well, where's the convenience in that? Well, first off, I don't need to go to a gas station. I can charge at night at home. I don't go out of my way to do it.
Right.
Okay. Well, what if you live in an apartment? By God, that's the problem we're trying to solve. Okay. So that's why I like where I'm at. But your car is going to be able to do so many more convenient things than it has been, including maybe, automatic driving.
Yep.
It's also going to, as time goes on, the batteries are going to get stronger and less expensive, which is a way to make cars less expensive.
Yep.
And yet give them the same conveniences that a more expensive car has. I'll give you an example. I finally took my Tesla in for a repair. I have a Tesla S. They gave me a Tesla Y with 50,000 miles on it. I think it was a couple-year-old car. It had some conveniences that I hadn't figured out on my Tesla S. Like when the light turns green, the car will make a little pinging sound. That's really convenient.
Yep.
So
it is.
it's basically opening up. It's doing the same thing that chips did to the television business. Today, you can go buy a television that does all kinds of great things.
Yeah.
And it's no more expensive than what you paid 35 years ago for a big, heavy, boxy television that did one thing.
Right.
So that's the EV story, in my opinion, today. It's a matter of convenience.
David, you guys are in the business of installing the charging stations and managing those for the client, and ensuring that they've got power to charge those vehicles. Over time, as the technology improves, is the infrastructure that you guys are installing, is it set up to, for increased capacity to charge these cars faster? What's the bottleneck really on, that charging speed? It gets better all the time, but what is it in the component of that entire system that is taking a while to, accomplish that supercharge really fast, in several minutes? What's the bottleneck in that whole process?
Well, there's two of them, Andrew. One of them is the car itself. Okay, the technology in the car that allows you to onboard the amount of electricity that you can onboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it started out at 7.2 kilowatts, and now most of the cars are at 9 to 11, with some, including Tesla, at over 20. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, when it comes to multifamily, it's literally every property is different.
Yeah.
Bottleneck at the multifamily is the amount of supply of available electricity to put up charging stations. And it's different for every property. And I can tell you that 99% of the properties, multifamily properties in the United States today, do not have enough to meet the future demand, nor will they ever have enough to meet future demand.
So how does, if they never have enough to meet future demand, is that something that the local governments need to work on? Is that a grid problem, I guess?
Well, it is a problem, especially if you live in a multifamily community, because if you live in a 300 unit multifamily property, you may have 400 parking spaces. You may only be able to put up 4 chargers. And
Right.
one day during the life of this property, especially if it's new, you may have 300 cars that are electric, 400 cars that are electric.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So you only have 4 chargers. they're going to be busy all the time, but most people aren't going to be able to get to them. And that's where your secondary charging comes in. That's
Gotcha.
where your office, you go to your office and they charge, or you go to Walmart and you get a charge, or a grocery store, or things, some public charging station. Okay. But to us, the top of the food chain in EV charging is where you live.
Yep.
Everything else will be secondary, and you'll have to deal with it. Now, you say that's horrible. Well, what if your battery got 700 or 800 miles?
Yeah.
Okay, out of one charge. You may only need to do that once a month.
Right.
You may need to only refuel once a month. And so you'll figure that out, but it's still only once a month.
Yeah.
Then you compare that to stopping at a gas station 4 times a month, 3 times a month, and that's where the comparisons come in.
Yeah, and it's getting better. Like all these cars, the new cars that are coming out are longer and longer range every single time.
It's all about, and you know what, Andrew? People ask me, well, they're not selling good. They're not selling good. That's all we hear. But the public isn't stupid. When it comes to electric vehicles, it's all about the price and how far you can go.
Yep.
And if you're trying to sell something for more money when you can't go as far, it's just not going to compete. And that's the problem a lot of the legacy automobile manufacturers are having today, is their product just doesn't match up yet.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to pay for an inferior product. That's why Tesla's done so well. They've got a great entry car that sells like hotcakes. So you can't say electric vehicles don't work. David, for an apartment complex that's looking for, this kind of infrastructure, I've only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask on, financial incentives. Are you seeing more of that being discussed from local governments, footing some of the bill for this? Because, the government is the one that's driving a lot of the electric vehicle discussion, and they're going to have to partner with, private entities on the infrastructure. Are you seeing that happen?
Yeah, yes, Andrew, we get a lot of incentives. It depends. Some states don't offer any, but you have the state, you have the federal government, you have the state government, and then you have local utilities. And we probably see more grants from local utilities than we do from the state level. I say that, maybe not. But there's a lot of them, and you have grants and you have rebates. And there's a difference between one is, a rebate, you get to do the work first and then send it in for a reimbursement. And a grant, you generally have to get all your ducks in a row before you spend any money, get the grant money, and then go spend it. But there's a lot of those out there. We take full advantage of them. I do not expect them to always be out there. And that's one reason it pays to do it today. If I have one more minute, I will tell you, there's a big flaw in how the government is looking at these incentives when they give out incentives. They are looking to put them, they really focus their incentives on lower income areas. Okay. Well, lower income areas, while they need them, it's not going to drive absorption of electric vehicles. The people that live in lower income areas usually are buying used cars.
Right.
In order to have a used car, what do you need to have first? A new car.
Mm-hmm.
Before you can sell a used car, you got to sell new cars. So they ought to be pushing as many new cars out so you can get to the used cars.
True.
Instead of just the opposite is what they're doing. They're saying we're going to give 75% of our money to low income areas and 25%, to the higher income areas. Well, if you really want adoption, get the people with the money to do it, and then they'll sell into the used car market, and you'll have demand in lower income areas. That's my political speech. I'm through with politics.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot. It makes sense to me. You gotta drive the supply to get the new supply to get the used supply. David, there's always way more to talk about than we have time for. I'm out of time. If you guys are watching the show, I say this all the time when we talk to guests. These are, especially Revs is on the forefront of installing, electric vehicle charging stations in multifamily communities. So if you guys are investors in real estate, you're in the multifamily business, look up David, give his team a call. and they will do the analysis and get you guys, set up with electric vehicle refueling solutions, as the name says, at your facility. So, David, until next time, really appreciate you being on the show, and look forward to having you on again.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Have you ever had to hire multiple contractors? It is a daunting task that takes a lot of management time and impacts the core business or the company that time you're spent with your loved ones. At Texas Home Property Solutions, you can count on a responsible company that can tackle all your general contractor needs. Electricity, painting, remodeling, plumbing, air conditioning, and roofing. Hire us and forget it. With over 20 years of experience, Texas Home Property Solution will deliver your project on time and within budget, with the high level of quality and integrity, no matter the size or complexity. If you are a company, a government institution, or an individual who needs a general contractor, you need Texas Home Property Solution. Take a decisive step and call us today for a free consultation.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. And we're welcoming back a guest who's been on the show a number of times before, Shannon St. Val. Shannon, owns a lot of short-term rentals. She manages a lot more short-term rentals. So Shannon, welcome back to the show. It's always great to have you on. A question just kind of right off the bat that I have. I mean, look, people are pivoting from long-term rentals to short-term rentals because, the money's better. It's not as easy to manage, those properties because there's a lot more going on. There's a lot of moving parts. What are some of the, emerging, I guess, innovations, trends? I mean, what can owners do to, make their short-term rentals, the management of them more efficient? How can they stay ahead of the curve on being a popular place to be in terms of the competition? What are some of what's going on out there? So, as people pivot to short-term rentals, they can make more money and truly make more money.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting trends out, and one that's come to mind is the big focus on these experiences or let's say theme houses. So you've been seeing like the Barbie theme or the Harry Potter theme homes, and so we've been seeing owners have a little bit of advantage if they have some like a themed experience, or even if you're just just focusing it solely towards families, or even pushing it towards individuals who are coming in for work. So just kind of marketing it differently in a sense has been a big trend. The other thing I would say is there's a big push around since COVID, having dedicated workspaces in every single home. And that as of late we've been really pushing for that as well, in terms of having a dedicated office space. That's a great way to kind of geek out the market, to appeal to more people, because people are working on their trips, right? So, yeah.
That's smart. The office thing, I didn't really think about, but you're right. I guess the working from home thing is still happening, right? So if you have an office space, do they need a room, or can it be just a desk in the corner somewhere?
I mean, ideally a room, but
Yeah,
we're trying to optimize revenue here. So as long as we have a
true.
dedicated area, dedicated area for the desk setup, then that works as well.
What's a good way, Shannon, out of curiosity, you mentioned like the themed houses that certain short-term rental owners, I've seen a lot of that, on Twitter and social media, these themed houses. How can an owner know what's happening in their own city, and figure out what the destination is? I mean, look, I own property in a number of different cities, but I'm not really sure I know like every little thing that happens in that city and why people show up there. How do owners, kind of figure that out to make a theme? I mean, that's pretty bold, use of cash, I guess, to like design
Yeah,
your house
it's
around
very
it.
niche, So one thing that I do is just to kind of be informed about what's going on in my local market is we set up Google Alerts. Just do that, right? Set up Google Alerts
That's
so you
smart.
know what's happening in your industry. You get it coming to you. In addition to that, just join your local, and there's a national group called the Vacation Rental Management Association.
Okay.
I joined that, and that was helpful because they send you, webinars and information about conferences, and the conferences have been a game changer for me to keep up to date on where the trends are, what's happening. I've made significant improvements in my business, and keeping on top of what's happening, because sometimes you're in a silo and you don't really know what's going
Yeah.
on. Having those resources has been extremely helpful to kind of know, okay, you can ask other rental managers or ask other hosts or owners like, hey, has this worked for you? And so you're learning from your peers.
That's smart. I haven't. So the conference thing,
Mhm.
um, is that something that happens a couple times a year in different cities, or what does that look like?
Oh my goodness, there's a few. So they have regional ones and national ones. I mean, I try to go to at least two a year. And yeah, you do have to pay a little bit, but I'm telling you, it is worth
It's
the
worth it.
investment. I've learned, I've significantly improved my income because of it. Learning about new softwares. I mean, it's a game changer in terms of keeping up to date, and especially if you want to scale. It's been huge for me.
That's smart. What are some of the emerging technologies that have come up, over the last, I mean, I would say a couple of years, but technology changes quickly. So what are what are some of the new technologies that are out there?
I mean, this is fun stuff. I've seen like these VR, augmented, well, I guess more so like virtual reality, so you can kind of have the guest prior to booking, or give them a link so they can experience as if they're walking in the home. So
Huh.
I feel like the long-term space has been a little bit more ahead of the curve in terms of having these AI experiences, so people can kind of do a walkthrough before they get there. But the short-term rental industry is catching up to that. So that's a really big thing. I'd say, in terms of emerging technology, AI, of course, right? So we're using AI now. We just implemented ChatGTP into our system in terms of responding to guests. So that's been huge. And
Interesting.
now the interesting thing about the AI is now you can kind of customize it based on who your guest is. If you know they're a family, it feels all custom, but it's all automated.
Wow. So do you just is that a plugin that you can add into your property management platform?
Yeah, so we use host away software, but
Yep.
all of the major big PMS softwares, property management softwares, have some type of AI integration. I mean, they have to do it to keep up, or you can pay for one where you can, do it on the side if you don't want to, if you can't do it through your
Amazing.
PMS system. But it's a game changer in terms of helping you stay on top of customizing the guest experience.
That's amazing. I got an email, by the way, over speaking of technology, over the weekend about how Airbnb is like canceling your ability to have video cameras at your site.
Mhm.
Is that true? Can Airbnb tell you not to have cameras up?
Yeah, I think some people just been violating people's privacy. So you can still have them
Imagine.
outside. So we just have a policy overall not to have them inside the homes.
Yep.
Um, but now you have to disclose it, but you can't have them inside. It's just a privacy issue. And
I would not. I would not stay in an Airbnb that had a camera inside.
exactly. But I think
Uh,
some of the owners weren't even disclosing that it's inside. But I have a camera inside of my personal home, but for my dog, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe
Not
some
an
owners
Airbnb.
Exactly, right. Never. And then maybe I'm assuming it's a mistake or they just don't take it down for the guests. I don't know. I mean, I just think yeah. So I'm glad that Airbnb's doing that.
Yeah, they need to draw a hard line in the sand on that because I mean that is a little bit creepy, for an owner to have a camera on the inside of a property. What about parties? Parties is something that Airbnb's been fighting, ever since they banned parties in 2020. Is there any technology that's out there to help, the owner assist or the property management company assist in shutting down a party or stopping it before it even starts by guest screening? How does somebody do that?
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool softwares and tools out there that helps with that. We use a tool called or hardware called Minute, and that helps monitor the noise level. It tells us if there's too many guests in the home. It tells us if someone's smoking. So that's a huge thing. And there's also other softwares that'll help you screen a guest. And it's really like a risk score. So you'll get like a risk score based on how long they've been on Airbnb, how long, how old they are. And it kind of tells you the likelihood of, them being a bad guest. So leveraging technologies in the short-term rental space it's essential. It's essential.
Yep. Do you see any, COVID-19 obviously changed the paradigm for not only short-term rentals, but I mean, the real estate continuum, a lot of different industries. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't see what's going to happen in the future, but is there anything on the horizon, legislatively or otherwise that would impact, in your opinion, short-term rentals like moving forward at all?
I would say in terms of just like those things like COVID, I think now since that's happened, there's been more so a push around offering flexible cancellation policies. So before Airbnb and VRBO and all the sites were a little bit more, gave you more flexibility. And I think, I'm assuming they're going to try to make it similar to hotels. So, so they're making it more flexible just in case, there is something that happens. So that's something that we see that may be coming up soon.
Yep. And, there's not to get too far in the weeds on, like government action on short-term rentals, like what happened in New York. I mean, half of all the short-term rentals got shut down overnight. Is there any way that an owner can protect themselves when they're buying a short-term rental or a property that they want to turn into a short-term rental in a certain market? How can you protect yourself as an owner to make sure that Palm Springs, they closed, the loophole. There's a lot of short-term rentals that closed down in Palm Springs, New York. I mean, there's a lot of cities that are doing this, Dallas. Are there any, I guess, municipalities or cities that have already, figured out like this is how we're going to treat long-term rental or short-term rentals, and this is what we're doing? And how can an owner, navigate through all that to figure out where the best place to invest is?
This is hard. And I say to make sure anyone that comes to me, I tell them, make sure to do the market research, make sure you understand. But rules change all the time. Like in New Jersey, they had approved short-term rentals. Then they realized, there was an influx of business. Same thing in New Orleans. They approved it and then they shut it down. So I tell people there's no guarantee. Gosh. And so diversifying where you are, diversifying your markets may be the best way to help mitigate some of that risk. But when it comes to regulatory, those regulatory changes and deciding where to invest, just make sure you know what the current rules are. I always tell people kind of know when the last time they passed something. Yep. Because if it's recent, typically it takes legislation like a year or two before something else happens again. So you're like, okay, can I get at least 2 years out of it before something else makes change? You never know. You never know. And so you just have to be prepared for that risk.
And it really could be anywhere too, right? Because like it's not just, the Northeast, they always, take liberal view on politics. I mean, Dallas outlawed Airbnb. So I mean that's in the South, right? So you really can't be too careful on some of this stuff, I guess.
Yep.
Well, look, Shannon, thanks for jumping on with me today. It's always a pleasure having a visit. And so, how can people find you if they're in the Northeast and they want to know more about short-term rentals? Where do they go to find Shannon's company?
Yeah, on social, we're at Stay with Elevate, and then you can find me on LinkedIn if you want to hit me on direct messaging, or you can go to our website, ep-mg.com. So, yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, Shannon, thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, everybody.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
Welcome to Biz Talk, everyone. I am your host.